A few days ago I was reading the 5th chapter of St. Matthew to a Hebrew rabbi. "That is in the Bible. That is in the Talmud too," he said at almost each saying, pointing out to me in the Bible and the Talmud passages very much like those in the Sermon on the Mount. But when I came to the verse that says, "Do not resist evil," he did not say, "That is also in the Talmud," but only asked me with a smile, "Do Christians keep this law? Do they turn the other cheek to be struck?" I was silent. What answer could I give, when I knew that Christians in our days, far from turning the other cheek when struck, never let an opportunity escape of striking a Hebrew on both cheeks? I was greatly interested to know if there was any law like this in the Talmud, and I inquired. He answered, "No, there is nothing like it. But pray tell me, do Christians ever keep this law?" His question showed me clearly that the existence of a precept in the law of Christ, which is not only left unobserved, but of which the fulfilment is considered impossible, is superfluous and irrational. Now that I comprehend the true meaning of the doctrine, I see clearly the strange state of contradiction within my own self that I had permitted to arise. I was confessing Christ as God and his teaching as divine, and at the same time I was ordering my life contrary to his teaching. What was left for me to do but to acknowledge the teaching as an impracticable one? In word, I acknowledged the teaching of Christ as sacred, but I did not carry out that teaching in deed, for I admitted and respected the unchristian institutions that surrounded me. Throughout the Old Testament we find it said that the misfortunes of the Israelites arose from their believing in false gods and not in the true God. In the 8th and 12th chapters of the first book of Samuel, the prophet accuses the people of having chosen, instead of God, who was their king, a human king who, according to their opinion, was to save them. "Do not believe in toga, vain things," says Samuel to the people. 1 Samuel 12:21. "They will not help you and will not save you, for they are toga, vain. In order not to perish with your king, believe in God alone." My faith in these toga, in these empty idols, hid the truth from my eyes. In my way to him, these toga, which I did not have the strength to renounce, stood before me, obscuring his light. One day, as I was passing through Borovitsky Gate, I saw a crippled old beggar with his head bound up in a ragged cloth and sitting in a corner. I had just taken out my purse to bestow a trifle upon him, when a bold, ruddy-faced young grenadier in a government fur coat came running down the Kremlin slope. On seeing the soldier, the beggar sprang up with a look of terror and ran limping down toward the Alexander Garden. The grenadier pursued him, but, not succeeding in overtaking him, stopped short and began to abuse the poor fellow for having dared to sit down near the entrance gate in defiance of orders. I waited until the grenadier came up to where I stood, and then I asked if he could read. "Yes, what of that?" was the answer. "Have you ever read the Gospel?" "I have." "Do you know these words, 'He who feeds the hungry'?" I repeated the text to him. He listened attentively. 2 passers-by stopped. It was evidently disagreeable to the grenadier that, while conscientiously discharging his duty by driving people away from the entrance gate, as he was ordered to do, he unexpectedly found himself in the wrong. He looked puzzled and seemed to be searching for some excuse. Suddenly his dark eyes brightened up with a look of intelligence, and moving away as if about to return to his post, he asked, "Have you read the military code?" I told him that I had not. "Well then, do not talk of what you do not understand," he said, with a triumphant shake of his head. And muffling himself up in his overcoat, he went back to his post. He was the only man I have met in all my life who strictly, logically, solved the problem of our social institutions, which had stood before me and still stands before each who calls himself a Christian. End of chapter 2.